This episode, we're in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. While here, we'll dive into the culture, including local dishes and spots around the centre. We'll also visit two towns close by, the coastal town of Setúbal and its stunning surrounding national park, and the fairy tale town of Sintra, to the west of the city. We begin though, in the heart of the city. The main area in Lisbon is situated around the popular street Rua Augusta, which begins at the vast waterfront square known as Commercio Square. This square was the port of entry to the city and used to hold the royal palace there before they moved. Commercio Square opens onto Rua Augusta by passing through the Triumphal Arch. The arch itself has a small lift that takes you up towards a viewing platform overlooking the square and Tagus River. Rua Augusta though is a bustling pedestrian street with traditional mosaic cobblestone pavements. It is the central point for restaurants, cafes and international shops in Lisbon. It runs for just under a kilometre all the way to Rocio Square and has many unusual places along the way. One of these is found behind the Millennium Bank. Here you'll have to delve underground, where you'll find a hidden free museum that shows the remains of the previous rulers of the city. This archaeological site gives private tours with an interactive visual display, allowing you to imagine what it was like to live under the rule of the Romans. A small section of Roman baths can be found here. Another, near the Rocio Square, is one of the most unique attractions in Lisbon. The Santa Justa lift takes passengers up 45 metres towards the Carmo Square. The lift has remained very similar since this period, with only a viewing platform being created. The Santa Justa lift isn't the only lift you'll find in Lisbon though, and there are a few dotted across the city. However, some of these lifts are actually just funiculars that help people climb the hillier parts of the city. Rua Augusta is in the Baixia Neighbourhood, with other popular and higher neighbourhoods very close by. One of these, Bairro Alto, is known locally as Lisbon's party district. The streets lead a double life though, and it can be a great place to find many low-budget restaurants before the revellers come out to play. It is the upper town of Lisbon and is situated on a hill, which means there are some great viewpoints like the Miraduoro São Pedro de Alcântara. This terraced viewpoint overlooks the river, St George Castle, and the terracotta roofs of the Alfama district. Alfama is the oldest and most symbolic district of Lisbon. It is a picturesque maze of narrow cobbled streets and traditional houses that slope up a steep hill, making it the perfect place to get lost. Within Alfama, you'll find many of Lisbon's most iconic historic buildings, including the Castello de São Jorge, which the area sits at the foot of. In the past, this meant that the area generally housed the poorer residents of the city, like sailors and dock workers. The castle itself is one of the most emblematic points in the city. Built in the mid-11th century during the Moorish period, it sits atop St George Hill, making use of the natural slopes to make invasion difficult. The castle provides a great vantage point, but there are many others close by. Miradouro das Portas in Alfama has a stunning view of the red rooftops and Tagus River. Another is the Miraduoro da Graca. Although in the Graca neighbourhood, it is just behind the castle in Alfama district. A great way to see all of these neighbourhoods is by taking the famous number 28 tram, which is a scenic route that passes all three and a number of famous landmarks along the way. These classic yellow 1930s trams still rattle along today because the tight curves and steep hills are unsuitable for modern trams. Beware though, they are a major reason why people visit Lisbon, and you may even have to queue to get on. Transport in Lisbon covers the city well. They also have an inexpensive metro system that has 4 lines to quickly get from one area to the next. It's the best way to get to the centre if arriving from the airport.
The best way to manage your transport fares is with a Via Viagem card. This was designed specifically for non-frequent customers as a pay-as-you-go option, where you top up, zap and gain instant access to any mode of transport without the hassle of purchasing single tickets. The card lasts for a year and costs 50 cents to purchase.
A more unusual way to get around the city and learn about the famous sights as you do is by taking one of the Lisbon go-car tours. This is a go-car that you can hire that has its own built-in guide coming with it, covering all of the city's hotspots and providing information on them. The office is based close to the archaeological site, and they also offer other forms of tours popular to Lisbon, like tuk-tuks. If you want to get a bit further from the traffic though, Monsanto Forest Park is a large protected green area that is just on the outskirts of the city centre. This 10-kilometre site contains a range of forest trails which are popular with walkers, runners and cyclists. Another green space to visit, located a bit further outside of the city, is the Parque Natural Arrábida. Located next to the sea, between the city of Setúbal and fishing town of Sesimbra, the area has incomparable natural beauty, where the blue sea White chalk cliffs and green vegetation form a perfect blend to provide a paradise-type feel. You'll find a wealth of gorgeous beaches here too, with characteristics fitting to the Mediterranean. The idyllic Praia de Galapinos is one of the region's most stunning beaches. This beach sits on a small cove on its own and is easy to miss due to the fact that it can be quite hard to reach. Once there though, the almost private crystal clear waters will have made your journey completely worthwhile. On the opposite end of the scale, the biggest beach in the area is the Praia de Figueirina. This is very close to Setúbal and runs for 1 kilometre. For this reason though, it can get very busy in the warmer months. As mentioned before, the park and beaches are close to Setúbal, which is worth visiting too. You'll find the Mercado do Livramento here, a covered market selling the finest of Portugal's traditional foods.
The market is an important part of life for residents in Setúbal, and many come here to buy their fresh ingredients.
You'll find freshly caught fish, fruit and veg aplenty. The tiles at the back of the hall are worth keeping an eye out for and depict different economic activities of the city. You can also get a short ferry ride over to the Troia Peninsula, a 13-mile long narrow spit of land. To get across to the Setúbal area from Lisbon, you'll have to take the Vasco da Gama bridge out of the city and then drive for around 30 minutes. This bridge was named after the famous explorer and is almost an incredible 13 kilometres long. It is the longest bridge in Europe, even beating the famous Øresund Bridge connecting Denmark and Sweden. You'll find plenty of marine life close by to the bridge in Lisbon's Oceanarium. The Oceanário de Lisboa is the largest indoor aquarium in Europe. It is home to 8,000 types of sea creatures from 500 different species. Highlights include sharks, rays, and the only 2 existing sea otters in Europe. Unlike other walk-through oceanariums, Lisbon's square-shaped build across multiple levels allows constant and quick access to the focal point, the main tank. Sea life is an important part of Lisbon's culture, whether in the oceanarium, river, or even on your plate.
The national dish in Portugal is actually cod, known locally as bacalhau. It is so popular that there is apparently 365 ways to cook it, one for each day of the year.
Baking the cod is one of the most common ways of cooking it these days, and you'll find places doing it all over the city. Moraria is a Moorish quarter, and one place to try it here, nestled away in a small cobbled street between the Rocio Square and Graca Viewpoint, is Zé de Moraria. Known as that place in Moraria that is always full, the restaurant is perfect for their portion sizes and cheap prices. It is closed on Sundays and is only open Monday to Thursday for a typical Portuguese lunch from 12 to 4 p.m. However, it has extended hours until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. One of the highlights on their menu is a chorico asada. This is a chorizo that is set on fire and flame cooked right by your table until crisp and slightly charred. In the restaurant you'll notice pictures of lots of famous fado singers born in the neighbourhood. Fado is a type of traditional Portuguese singing that is distinguished by its expressive melancholic tone. The fado singer is commonly dressed in black and is accompanied by a classical guitar. They passionately sing about the harsh realities of everyday life, often focusing on the sadder aspects. It is said that the Moorish people were at the heart of its creation, and due to the similarities, it is often referred to as the Portuguese blues. Maria de Moraria, Casa de Fados, is situated in the said area. It is supposedly the house that Maria de Severa, considered as the first fadoist, was born. Another place to watch a show, this time in Alfama, is Senhor Fado de Alfama. This tiny hole in the wall hosts only 9 tables, but gives an incredibly personal feel. Dinner is served on a fixed price menu by the 2 owners who are the essence of perfect hospitality. The food consists of their own homemade recipes. After dinner, you'll get a surprise to go with the fado performance. There are lots of places within the city to sample the flavour of Lisbon seas. There is one place, however, that will please seafood and non-seafood lovers alike. The Time Out Market in Lisbon is a combination of some of the city's most favoured and best foods, all under one roof. 800 seats are surrounded by a total of 25 restaurants and more, with some of the best chefs in the business working here. You'll find everything from burgers to seafood to soups to pastel de natas. Pastel de natas are a delicious type of Portuguese egg custard tart pastry.
The dish originated in the 15th century when Madeira was colonised and refined sugar became available. Around the same time, convents used egg whites to starch their clothes and used the leftover yolks to make sweet, delicious pastries.
Different sweets were made all over, but the Jerónimos Monastery in Lisbon are responsible for creating this tasty treat. When many convents in Portugal were closed in 1820, the monastery began selling these pastries at a shop close by. This shop was the Pasteis de Belem, the place that even to this day is one of the best places to get them. Here, they call them after the shop though, and they are made to the secret original recipe passed on by the descendants of the shop. Inside you'll find plenty of seats. Beware though, they are so good you may have to queue to try one of these tasty treats. The monastery itself is worth visiting. The building has stunning Gothic architecture and was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1983.
It was originally built to commemorate Vasco da Gama on his return from India, and was built on the site that he used to pray at before setting sail on his long voyage.
Both are set in the Belem area, which is around 8 kilometres west of the city centre. You'll also find another popular spot on UNESCO World Heritage Site here, the Balem Tower. This tower was constructed on the banks of the Tagus River to protect from invasion by sea, hence its distance from the centre, but has also acted as a lighthouse and political prison over the years. Belem may be a bit out of the city, but it's on the way to our next day trip, the stunning gem that is Sintra. Sintra is crammed with UNESCO World Heritage Sites, with the area itself awarded as one for its rich and cultural history. The highlight of these is the colossal multicoloured Pena Palace, sitting atop a hill. It is the crown jewel of the area, depicting the era of Romanticism perfectly. Inside you'll find a number of beautiful rooms fitting to the period, in a grand glazed tile courtyard.
The palace was originally a medieval monastery, but after falling in love with the area, Prince Ferdinand II bought the land and converted it into a palace, with its purpose to act as a royal summer house. By this time anyway, the monastery was a ruin, having been destroyed by an earthquake.
It wasn't only the land of the palace he bought, but much of the surrounding area too. You'll find infinite shades of green contrasting the palace's colours, with a Pena Park all around. The park has many trails for walking and some great sights along the way. A thin stretch of 5 picturesque lakes are close by. The 2 castle-like shapes you see in the water are actually duck houses and add to the ambience of the park. Further up and easily missed is the Grotto of the Monk. This small hole was used by Jerónimos monks for meditation back when the palace was a monastery. Slightly further away, the chalet and garden of the Countess of Edla is another of Ferdinand's designs. After losing his first wife, the Queen of Portugal, he fell in love with the Countess, and together they designed the chalet as a personal refuge.
It was designed in a typical Alpine style, but both heavily involved in the arts, its beauty became unparalleled.
It does cost to get into the park, but access does include the chalet and terraces of the palace too. Outside of the park, there are still many things to see in Sintra. Isolated high above the city, the ruins of the Moorish castle is a fortification that was built as far back as the 10th century, when the Moors ruled the land. Its famous walls snake across the hills with similarities in a way to the Great Wall of China. In the heart of Sintra, you'll discover the current Palace of Sintra, defined by its twin white chimneys rising high above and being visible all over the area. It is believed to be the oldest palace in Portugal and therefore was occupied often. Unlike other buildings in the area, the architecture doesn't feature colourful and eccentric designs, but instead has a Gothic exterior to it. And the last place in the area worth visiting is the Monsanto Palace. Unlike the others that were associated with the royal family, this palace was first an estate and had many owners from rich merchants to writers. It was eventually purchased by a British trader, Francis Cook, who turned it into a palace and became the first Viscount of Montserrat. Another symbol of Romanticism, the palace also has Gothic and Indian influences. It is surrounded by a large and exuberant garden that over the years has collected plant species from all over the world. The palace is a bit further outside of Sintra and can be quite difficult to get to without a car. From here though, you are already almost halfway to the coastline of Portugal. The coastline hosts the Cabo da Roca, the most western part of mainland Europe. You'll come across the Cabo da Roca lighthouse here, situated atop one of the many sheer cliffs. The cliffs stretch north all the way into the distance, but close to the lighthouse, if you know where to look, you'll find a beach completely hidden in its own cove. Ursa Beach is a wild and unspoilt collection of sand and rock. Ursa translates to bear, and it is named after the huge sea stacks found at one end said to resemble the animal and its cub. There is no definitive path down to the beach, and it can only be reached by clambering down a steep valley covered in loose rocks. It does make it relatively unknown due to this, however, and it is well worth the trip. Having an array of beautiful beaches across the country, Portugal is naturally famous for surfing. At the first sign of the warmer months, locals can be seen in numbers taking to the water with their boards. The most popular place to do this is on Carcavalos Beach between Lisbon and Sintra. Here, as a budding boarder, you can even learn the basics with Carcavalos Surf School. The beach is also popular for relaxing too, with many bars serving a variety of drinks here. The local drink in Portugal is Ginjinha, which is a liqueur made from the ginger berries, a type of sour cherry. It's served as a shot even though it's usually between 18 and 24%. Most bars in Lisbon offer them, but one of the best places to try it is at Ginjinha. This bar is situated on a corner of the Rocio Square and it's almost more like a shop as there is next to no space inside. Another bar you should try to visit in Lisbon is Pavilhão Chinês. Translated to Chinese pavilion, the name refers to the museum-style interior displaying hundreds of Chinese ornaments. These ornaments are part of the owner's personal collection and are spread across the 5 rooms. There are also a couple of pool tables here too. The ornaments aren't the only drawing point of the bar, and your experience starts before you've even entered the building. The entrance is actually hidden and can only be accessed by ringing the bell on an unmarked red door. A pristinely dressed waiter will then meet you and guide you inside. And if you want to delve further into the world of ornaments, Lisbon has a Marionette Museum.
In the past, marionettes were an important form of entertainment in Portugal.
This museum is the only one in Lisbon, however, and visitors are transported to a world before modern devices, with the lifelike features of these puppets vividly displayed across multiple thematic rooms. You can also create your own stop-motion movie here.
And finally, we'll finish with another Portuguese tradition and a little gem of a place. Right now I'm standing in Corteção Netos, a family-run business selling tiles.
These ceramic tiles are used all over Portugal as an important part of architectural design. The ones you find in the shop were collected over a period of 34 years by the owners who now sell them on. It can be quite a sight as you are greeted with a wall of colour when you enter or are on your way out.
We hope you enjoyed your stay in Lisbon. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel below for all the tips and tricks on many more hidden cities that we will explore.